Welcome to In the Green Room. I'm Kinga.
And I'm Chet, and we are missing Martin today, but luckily we have Sam Pillsbury and Richard back in the studio, so it's going to be a fun wine tasting episode.
Oh, you got a twofer with lots of blasphemy.
And it's
It's really fucking great.
Summer Sippers with Sam. Richard, can you say it?
Sexy Summer Sippers with Sam.
Doing a Mike Tyson impersonation. No.
Yeah.
2 weeks in a row, we've got a salacious Summer Sippers.
Not salacious. You know what salacious means? Do you ever look it up?
Yeah, and
This
he's
is
very
not
salacious.
This is not pornography. Well,
Yeah.
wait. Maybe Sam's here.
Yeah.
Maybe it is pornography. I don't know.
That's not pornography. It's just
No.
blatantly crude.
Right.
Do you know?
So tell us about what is going on and what do we need to be drinking for the summer, Sam?
Well,
Summer Sippers.
if I was somebody who knew about or liked Arizona wine, or somebody who knew about or liked Pillsbury, I would go to Total Wines. I'd go to Total Wines or Trevor's, and I would buy
Trevor's,
Wild
yeah.
Child White and the Rosé. Okay, because
Wild
they're
Child.
inexpensive, they're really good. So what I did today.
The Wild Child's one of my favorites for sure.
Sure,
It's
but
amazing.
That's partly why I didn't bring it today. So
You already know we're very obsessed with it. Yeah.
So we're trying something
I brought
else.
two rather unusual whites, which are really beautiful summer wines, and I
Yeah.
can tell you why. And but bear in mind that my whole thing is I make wines to go with food. I call them food wines. I don't make what I call cocktail wines. Cocktail wines are great. They're fine.
Yes.
You just don't want to.
Yes.
You just don't want to eat pan-seared scallops with a massive oaky shard. That's all, you know.
Like a Rambert.
Yeah, and the people that drink Napa Valley cabs, I don't know what they eat with that wine because you can't taste anything anymore. So there's this kind of and I've gone on about this before. It's kind of my profile, but there's, you know, this is a country where bigger is better. That's kind of our thing, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And so going against the grain and going delicate and nuanced is much more complex and fascinating and interesting, and goes much better with food.
And more unique,
Yeah.
for sure.
Well, it isn't in America. It's becoming more trendy than it used to be. Like 7 years ago, I sent 14 wines off to the San Francisco Chronicle, which is the heart of Napa, in completely atypical Napa Valley wines, expecting to get laughed out of town. And I came back with a bucket of awards like you've never seen, you know. So it's clear that the Robert Parker thing is fading, and there's a new school. And
How many awards did you win?
I've won 100 medals in the Chronicle in the last 7 years.
That's incredible.
Wow.
Some people say that's better than anyone's ever done. I don't know because I don't have time to count everybody else's.
Yeah, the Robert Parker thing. You know, I always wondered about the Robert Parker thing because it's true that he was really responsible for promoting these big cocktail wines, big fruit-forward style wines. But he also loved French wines. He also loved European wines.
Well,
that seemed ironic.
Well, they're big French wines too. I mean, he would go. He would go for the oaky, riper, you know, blah blah blah. But it's interesting. I've got some of those guys' pages on my. They pop up on my Facebook feeds, and it's interesting. Like the wine. What's the magazine called? I've had COVID. I can't remember anything. Wine Spectator.
Wine Spectator, yeah.
Anyway,
Wine enthusiast?
Or both of those guys. And what they do is they always post pictures of old castles. You know, they're crazed about. They're very brave. They choose wines that have been winning notice for 300 years. How innovative, you know.
Yeah, right.
One of the reasons I love Jancis Robinson is she doesn't do that. I think I've said before, like these two wines I'm going to pour today, they were originally influenced by her telling me, this is the Queen's Psalm in the 70s.
Seriously?
The Queen's Psalm, and this is still writing, in the 70s.
She's English.
Found this tiny little vineyard and winery in Gisborne in New Zealand, which is about a 6-hour drive from Auckland, who was making a fabulous dry Gewürztraminer, and I went and tried it. And Gewürz is it's very hard to get a dry Gewürz. They're almost always off dry or slightly sweet or sweet. A fine dry Gewürztraminer. Gewürztraminer means spicy, fruity, doesn't it?
Something like that, yeah.
And
I love
it's
them.
just
I love
fabulous
those.
because see what a lot of people don't know. We're also a culture that's addicted to sweetness. I came from New Zealand to the States, and I one of the first things I'll never forget, going to a restaurant and all the families in that restaurant having breakfast were drinking Coca-Cola with their breakfast.
Oh my God.
I'd never seen that before.
Gross.
You know, and I had dinner the
Yeah.
night before.
Sounds like you were in Florida.
No, I had
or
breakfast
something.
yesterday. My son took me to a Father's Day breakfast at Joy Bus Diner yesterday, and this
Nice.
guy sitting right next to us
Ah.
drinking a huge Coke. You know?
Yeah.
And the thing is, you can if you
Who drinks Coke anymore? Yeah.
Sugar stops you from tasting things. That's why it's in all the shit food on the planet.
Totally.
And salt's the next one. And they're both very powerful, very interesting things to use, but they're grossly abused. And what happens is, you try it sometime. If you have something that's why you have dessert at the end of your dinner. So I do make a one-off dry wine and one dessert wine, but they're
What are these two called?
Oh, this is Symphony and Inappropriate.
My two favorite. How'd you
Oh, I
know?
didn't know, honey. I was
Oh
trying to
my-
find something that
you know
wasn't
I
your
love
favorite, so I didn't have to
Inappropriate.
give you a bottle at the end.
I think this is the first. We've tried the Inappropriate before, but I don't think we've tried the Symphony before on that.
Symphony.
I
is-
don't think on the
the,
show.
the,
No.
the Symphony is a grape that was developed by UC Davis over a period of 50 years. It's a cross of a grape called Grenache Gris with another grape called Muscat of Alexandria, and they were looking at making a Muscat that didn't kind of go brown with age, and it's almost always made as a dessert wine. And I make it as we also make it as a dessert wine. We call it Sweet Lies, because when Bonnie Lee, who was working for me, who was a wine writer, I told her that I was going to make this off-dry wine, this dessert wine, and she told all the people I know, and then they all I had been writing about how much I hate cheap, shitty sweet wines, and they all said, "Oh, Pillsbury, you friggin' liar!" You know. So this is this. I never said there's very fine French and German dessert wines. I wasn't talking about those, and I made that clear.
Absolutely.
No, absolutely. But it got generalized, you know. So Bonnie said, "So what are we going to call it?" She said, "Let's call it Sweet Lies." So
I like that. I like
Perfect.
that.
Perfect.
all that
So
wine.
is it cool if we try the Symphony first then, since it's our first time trying it on the show?
Try the Symphony first.
This one's the Symphony.
The Inappropriate, which is named after me. I don't fucking know why.
You're so
And-
salacious. That's why. Salacious,
This-
inappropriate.
This is a
Hello.
blend of Symphony and Malvasia Bianca.
Why do you like to be so inappropriate?
I don't. I just am. I don't like it. I can't help it. It's like a mental disorder.
It's a mental disorder.
And something that we all discuss, your friends that know you so well, everyone knows you that you can like be so flirtatious and no one cares. You can get away with it. Where if anybody else did that,
Well, I think
They
it's
get in
because
trouble.
people know I'm just being playful. I mean,
Yes.
when you're hitting on somebody, it's a different.
Yes.
It's a whole different thing, you know.
yes.
I'm too spoiled to hit on anybody. I once flirted with someone who said, "Are you flirting with me?" And I said, "I want to tell you something. I've never gone to bed with a woman who wasn't besotted with me, and I'm not about to start now."
That's a great quote, Sam.
Just give me a little bit. I'm frail.
He's frail. Me too.
All right, cheers. Let's do our little cheers.
So this is a dry what we call a dry aromatic, which means it's a wine. It'll smell sweet. It'll taste a little bit sweet. It has no sugar in it at all. It is the quality of the fruit that goes into it. So that
The nose is spectacular.
oh, that's amazing. This is my favorite wine at the moment. You can where this works really well is with quite spicy, like stir-fried Asian food, maybe Thai food,
Yeah.
because it's got a
Wow.
it's delicate, but it's got some attack, so it can cope with spiciness.
It's
Got-
elegant.
and it's
Yeah.
got some acidity,
Yeah.
which makes it work.
I don't know.
And
This
all the
might
best,
be my favorite white
incidentally,
wine.
all the best
Wow.
really sweet dessert wines. I mean, the really sweet
Have
ones
good acid.
also have acidity.
Yeah.
That's what makes them so good.
That's why classical Rieslings can last so long.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah. Oh my God.
there are literally 200-year-old Rieslings out there.
Yeah.
Yep.
That are
So
still
what are we
drinkable.
tasting? Give us.
Okay,
I
so
like the
well,
descriptions.
so it's a cross of Malvasia and Symphony. Malvasia is a southern Italian aromatic which originated in Greece, and Symphony is this wine that was developed by UC Davis many years ago. So what I go for is a kind of it's so easy to make these two wines as fruit bombs. But once again, you make it as a fruit bomb, and someone will drink it and they'll go, "Oh, this tastes great." What are you going to do with it? You know, I mean, it's really interesting. There's a way of thinking about wine. I'm going to say two things. One of them is, oh, I forgot what I was going to say. That must be COVID hitting me again. No, I remember. There's a difference between drinking wine and tasting wine.
Yes.
Okay. And when you watch people drinking wine, I poured wine for about 60 people at a wine bar in Peoria. Again, I can't remember what it's called.
Too many late nights with all these.
No, I don't have any late nights. I go to bed at 7:30.
Summer sippers.
I get up at 5. The guys, they were pouring flights for these guys, and they were drinking it like cheap tequila. And people sometimes come into the taste room and do that, and I say, listen, you have to understand something. If you want to get alcohol into your system, get a bottle of Everclear and a syringe, okay?
They're gonna die though.
You put something incredibly delicate that was painstakingly made so that you can taste the nuance and the elegance of it. You sniff it and you sip it. First of all, sniff.
You should enjoy it.
Well, sniff.
Okay, so tell us how to do this. We sniff it.
Well, there's this phrase: swirl, sniff, sip. Swirl, sniff, sip. And one of the reasons I approve and want to use a wine with a stem on a glass is that you can swirl the wine around in the glass, which is very pleasant. It looks nice.
Dominic,
nothing wrong with looking nice.
Yeah, can you have a little?
Sure. But what this does is this action allows the wine to release its aroma, helped by the fact that it's got alcohol in it, which is volatile. Smell is 85% of your taste. So if you sniff a wine really carefully before you drink it, you'll be able to taste it better. Now, if it's a Charles Shaw, don't bother, because it's not going to make any difference. Try it with Coca-Cola sometime. But if it's a good wine, you'll be able to taste it better because like a complex person, you don't get 100% of a really good wine in the first 10 seconds. You have to spend a bit of time with it. And actually, the best thing to do is to swirl, sniff, sip 3 times, about 4 or 5 minutes between each time. And what you'll do, because I've done this too. You go to a store, you go to a winery, you have a sip of wine, you think it's great, you buy a case, you go home, and you go, oh God, what am I going to do with this? Because they played all the tricks on it. It's got a little bit of sugar, it's got a little bit of oak. It's got it's been fermented with oak chips in it. It's got all the crap, overripe fruit, all the crappy games that people play. But if you want to find out whether a wine is really good or not, do the swirl, sniff, sip thing.
So treat it like a date?
3 times. Yes, exactly. Swirl her first.
Yes.
Sip her first, and whatever's next.
So Chet's newly single. So Chet, you can swirl, sniff, and sniff. Swirl, sniff, sip.
Swirl, sniff.
But what
I'll take her
happens-
wine tasting. That'll actually be a better date.
No, exactly.
Altogether.
It's date advice.
It's very good
But
like a romantic thing.
Yeah, take her to Sam's.
What'll happen is, if it's not a good wine, it'll fool you with how good it tastes at first, and it'll get progressively less good as you go through the other sets of tasting. Quite often, of a really good wine, the first taste that you do, you don't even get it because it's so complex. You don't have the tools to process it really quickly. You have to spend some time with it. So, and the other thing I was going to say about drinking is that people come in to the taste room all the time. It's mostly men will say, I only drink reds, or they'll go, I don't drink wine, I drink bourbon, or I don't drink wine, I drink beer. And I go, okay, let me try to explain this to you. You don't drink bourbon the way you drink wine. They're different. It's like comparing a horse and a bicycle. Okay, so I drink beer. After a hot day in the vineyard, all I want is a goddamn cold Pilsner in a chilled glass, and I want to gulp it. You know, exactly what you don't do with wine. Okay. And bourbon, I want it after dinner in a glass with a big chunk of ice, and I want to sip it. You drink them differently.
With cactus needles that you can fall into.
That's right. Oh my God, what a story that was.
He ended up in the ER after a bunch of scotch. He fell into
Her
this big...
ex-boyfriend got me so drunk. I couldn't, he lives next door, I literally couldn't walk home.
Must have been
I
good
got,
scotch.
I
huh?
got in the front. I got in the front door and I had to crawl to my bedroom. But in the process of doing it, I walked into a barrel cactus. Which
Oh
was
no! Oh, no.
Never again.
It's
right?
been
Did you learn?
I have not been. That was 20 years ago.
Where were the cactus needles? Right there?
On my knees and shins.
Not down there.
Down there. What do you mean down there?
Down where?
No, I didn't get any in my nuts.
So this is 100% symphony. Yeah.
That's correct.
Yeah, lovely.
So those are two things. Also, yeah. Here's another one. The number of times a 75-year-old man comes in and says, "Give me your biggest red," and I go, "Well, this is a wine tasting, and you're gonna, like one of my good little children, you're gonna try everything. If you don't like it, that's fine. You can spit it out." And no, and I don't care whether they friggin' buy it or not. I could care less. These guys, 90% of the time, will walk out the door with 6 bottles of white wine and 1 or 2 bottles of red. And I think you've spent your whole life drinking the same goddamn friggin' thing. Is that how you live about everything? Is that
So
how
boring.
you?
A lot of wine drinkers do. You know, they want their same, and then not only that, they want it the same. To taste the same every year. Which is crazy.
They come to wine tastings at wine festivals and say, "Do you have a Cabernet?" I say, "You already know what fucking Cabernet tastes like. How about trying something new?" And the look on their faces, because first of all, no one's ever said that to them before, but also they never thought about it, you know. And you know, we do this a lot. We do it with food. We do it with architecture.
It's exciting to be around Sam.
We do it with the kind of cars we drive, you know. So we're totally lost in a world of what we're used to in appearances, and it's quite sad, really.
I think the symphony would also pair really well with a lot of seafood dishes.
Oh, yeah,
Like,
no,
I think it
that-
would taste great with I had
Definitely.
this garlic shrimp pasta last week. I think it would be really good with that.
Good call.
Why not? Why not?
I wouldn't want it with a pan seared snapper probably, but if it was something with some spice that's added to it and some
I think it would be great with salmon.
it would I really like my Chardonnay with salmon, but actually probably would be pretty good. Also, a lot of the time I had a bit of spice to this grilled salmon anyway, so you have that thing of the skin that's crispy and spicy.
Kind of spicy, yeah.
Yes.
It's good with whatever you want it to be
Which
good
is
with.
you know?
Also,
Yes.
you know?
No, there's there's no rules.
There's
you know,
no rules.
People
These are
think
suggestions.
if you like it,
Yeah, it's fun to do recommendations for listeners.
I totally agree. Thank you
Yeah.
for saying that, because people come and say I don't know much about wine, and then before they can say the next thing, I'll say, you know something, I don't either. I really don't. People ask me about something in some part of the world that's called something I've never heard of. I just know how to do what I do. I didn't grow up in the wine business. I grew up making movies, you know. So
we need to tell that part. So,
anyway.
how many movies did you do? You made
32 apparently.
32, and you did directing,
Psycho-
producing,
And writing.
and writing, all 3. And I think now there's going to be a movie about Sam. I think you should do a documentary.
I can't even think about making another film. People
Someone
send
should make a film about you, Sam.
people. Well,
Oh,
they
there we
can
go.
do that, but don't ask me to be involved. People
All
send me
right.
a screenplay, and I go to page 1,
We'll
and
do
my
it surreptitiously.
whole body goes into kind of paroxysm of like 40 years.
You won't even know you're
working-
being filmed.
40 years working 90% of my life unpaid, trying to raise money for the movies
Yeah.
that I want to make, and I just have this aversion. I don't even go to movies anymore. I know it sounds weird, but
You know what I'm curious about, Sam? When do you recall first tasting wine, and what were the circumstances?
I remember exactly.
Of course you
He was
do.
about 6 years old.
No, I was no.
In the
Well,
bottle.
okay.
It was in the bottle.
No, to be honest, probably in my parents drank wine with dinner, so I had probably tasted it. But the first time I can remember it affecting me is when I was 13 years old. My family emigrated from the United States to New Zealand, and we went by Italian ocean liner, and we left New York on this Italian liner, and every night I sat at a table about like this table we're sitting at now,
Yeah.
and there was a carafe of Chianti on the table, and every night my parents poured me a small glass of wine, and I drank it. And sitting on this Italian liner, drinking this beautiful food, sipping this Chianti, and holding the wine glass up to the light and seeing that red glow, and getting that little bit of buzz as a 13-year-old would. I mean, I'll just never forget. I love wine ever since.
Yeah.
Well, and wine is
It's a
healthy.
good introduction.
I mean, you know,
Small
if you're not
amounts,
drinking-
yeah.
Small amounts of wine is very healthy for you.
There's a really encouraging thing to tell you about drinking we've heard for years that the maximum for men should be 2 glasses of wine a day, and for women it should be
Right.
1. And then the Canadians did this big research project where they just went, no, 2 glasses a week.
Yeah, that's what I heard the newest research
One,
say.
that's not the newest. It's one. Alcohol's toxic. Okay.
Yeah.
So I went. Okay, I've been living with this bullshit rule all my life. So I'm, I by the way, I hardly drink at all anyway. But and then suddenly about 2 months ago, this 10-year research that was done, I think it was done in the States, came out, and they compared thousands of people over 10 years to people that drank nothing to people that drank the 2 glasses a day, and I think there was. Anyway, what they found was there was no difference between the people that drank nothing and the people that drank 2 glasses a day, which means that not drinking alcohol isn't even better for you.
Well, my grandma was
But that-
105 when she passed away, and
Oh,
she was
yeah.
healthy till 2 days before she died, and she drank 2 or 3 glasses of wine every night.
And that goes to show you that moderation is so important, because if you
Yes.
just enjoy yourself a little bit at a sustainable level, it's not really gonna,
Well,
cause that much side effects.
I mean, this was a blind study. I mean, this was really a really thorough one, and
But I think people that don't drink any
Did
wine are not fun.
that
I don't want to
study
with them.
include lifespan? Because I have read
No,
that,
it was all-
that
it was all-
people
no, it
who
was-
don't drink at all
Die earlier.
don't live as long
Yeah.
as people who drink moderately.
Exactly. Yes.
It was they charted all these things like
Yeah.
illness and lifespan. That was
Yeah.
all that research was there. It was an amazingly interesting thing to see, because I really didn't think that was probably true. But and then all the other reasons are, there's polyphenols in red wine and there's blah blah blah. But also it affects your brain. It makes you feel better. When you feel better, you can live longer.
And most people do it
If you're happy,
socially
it
with
definitely
friends.
makes an effect.
And if you're gregarious and friendly, and you're forgetting your troubles and just laughing.
Well, cheers to that. Cheers to
that.
today.
Oh, I need some more.
Well-
I need some more.
Well,
Definitely a social.
Kinga needs to know that drinking a bottle of wine a day for a woman is not good.
Yeah, that is true. Or even 2 bottles.
Drinking a bottle of wine during the show is probably not healthy. I'm just saying, I don't know.
It is.
It's
A whole
quite
bottle.
possible to
Mondays go
drink.
hard.
It's quite possible to drink a whole bottle, if you do it
Oh, I used to do it.
over 3 or 4 hours, it doesn't even really.
That's what I
yeah.
used. I'm in the wine business and for years, and this was
How old are you,
standard
Richard?
for me. That has nothing to do with what I'm about to say. So yeah, typically for me, in the beginning of the evening, I'm going to prepare dinner. I'm going to open a bottle of wine. I'm going to sip it while I'm cooking dinner. By the time the evening
By the
is
time
over,
you finish the whole bottle, you've burnt
that bottle's
everything,
gone.
I forgot on
Right.
Tinder you said you're 60, so don't divulge your age.
But anyways, is the Symphony at Total Wine then for people that want
No.
to get this bottle?
No.
Okay, so
Okay, where do we buy it?
The you'll have to go to the vineyard or the winery, or I think AJ's has a much bigger selection of our wine. than
Which
Total
AJ?
Wines. They're all different because they have their own cellar master.
Right.
So every
Oh,
store
okay.
has its own lineup. Trevor's has about 11 of our wines, and they have
Oh.
their
do they have the
prices-
Symphony?
I don't know.
Okay.
I think they do, but their
This one's
prices.
so good, I want to go buy a bottle like right after
Well,
the
let's
show.
buy a case from Sam after the show.
Their prices are cheaper. Their prices are cheaper than Total Wine.
Okay, so what's a bottle of Symphony cost?
I think it's $35. I can't remember.
Okay, so
I
and
make
do
it
you have a
out of-
case at home?
No.
I know where you live.
The Symphony was only bottled. The Symphony, by the way, guys, this was only bottled 2 weeks ago, so
This is the 22 vintage,
it's still
yeah.
evolving.
Yeah.
But we only have it at the vineyard at the moment. It doesn't exist anywhere else.
Yeah.
So when's the
can
next
order
wine
it.
dinner?
Oh, October or Labor Weekend.
What happened with the dinner you're supposed to do at the Mick?
Yeah, at the Mint.
Whatever happened
They
with
keep
that?
postponing it, but the problem is that I ran out of all my whites about 3 months ago,
Oh,
and
right.
I want to be able to. There are wines that I wanted to pour for that dinner that weren't bottled yet,
Oh, okay.
and now I'm waiting for them to settle down because they get a bit beat up when you bottle them, and they need.
Yeah.
It's really interesting. People say you can't filter wines. You can RO a wine. Wine's alive. If you haven't killed it with chemicals, it's still alive,
Yeah.
and it just rebuilt itself in the bottle. But sometimes it takes a few weeks or a few months.
Yeah.
So there will be a dinner there.
Oh yeah, apparently they're
Sometime.
the Sam is a huge fan of mine.
Jeff,
calls me
Yeah,
the
he's great.
godfather
Oh, Jeff is
of
great.
Arizona
yeah,
wine.
yeah.
Oh, he's the one. He's
Yeah,
the
great
one
guy.
at that last
Yeah.
dinner. He said that you have a lot of fun with his wife.
Not as much as I'd like to.
How inappropriate. Which ironically is the next
Okay,
bottle
see
we're
it?
gonna
There
try.
it is, written on the label.
Yeah. Sometimes it works out.
That was really good.
Now,
Cheers.
okay, so we've been drinking Symphony.
Yes.
Okay, let's try the inappropriate. That Symphony's got better. I tasted it a week
That's
ago.
so good.
It was.
It's so good.
I
Amazing.
think this is a more interesting wine.
Do you have a?
Well, it's a more interesting wine because
Do you have
it's got several grapes in
got more
the
stuff in
blend,
it. Yeah,
so
yeah,
it's,
yeah.
there's more to more nuance to
Dominic needs a little.
I'm gonna pour this.
You can have your own pork cup here.
Oh wow,
Dominic.
interesting. So what are we tasting here? Love it. It's amazing.
This is inappropriate, which is a blend of Symphony,
Oh, it's
which you just had,
50-50.
and Malvasia.
Yeah.
And Nobuo Fukuda is having this in his restaurant.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
The new
His new
restaurant?
one, yeah.
Where's that?
What do you know about it? When's it opening?
I was just there today. I don't know.
Really?
It's not open yet. It's in a motel. It's a weird setup, but it's a fabulous space. It's way more.
Where is that located?
I was just thinking, I can't remember. It's a place called. It's called a motel called My.
But I mean, is it in Phoenix?
No, it's in Phoenix.
Scottsdale?
It's in Phoenix. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
Phoenix.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Phoenix. Okay.
It's not downtown Scottsdale. It's more towards the east.
Okay, so I'm very excited to announce that my favorite Somm, I am going to say she's my favorite Somm, Laura Bruno, she's been at Sanctuary. She
won't be my favorite Somm until she starts carrying Pillsbury wine in her restaurant.
That's right.
She needs to get.
They used to
Yeah, and
have
Boyer Family
They used to
Winery
have it
too.
there.
But hold
They
on,
got rid
Sam
of
Fox.
it. I used to
snatched her
always
up.
order it when it was
Listen,
there.
Sam Fox.
He's not
who-
interested in my wine. Not remotely interested. Not
Okay.
even faintly interested.
Well, listen, she just got snatched up.
Yeah.
She took the wine program at Sanctuary to another level. She won all these awards, and they're touting her as like one of the best Somms. And she's only 25. She's gorgeous. She's smart. She's brilliant. She's fun. Anyway, Sam Fox snatched her up, and she's gonna be working for his restaurants at the Global Ambassador.
I used to be in the Sanctuary. They had a French Somm.
Oh my
and
God, I need more wine now.
He loved my
Immediately.
wines. But they stopped buying them. And I don't know if I told you this story before. So I went in there one day, and there was a very, very nice older woman there. And I said, I'm just wondering why you guys stopped buying my wine. She looked at me and said, Sam, it's got nothing to do with how good your wines are. She said, here's the problem. Really rich people come in here, and they want to buy a $250 bottle of wine. And the staff all get much bigger tips that way. And,
Yeah.
And they also want to buy wines that have these legendary reputations, not a Pillsbury wine from Cochise County, Arizona.
Right.
So it had nothing to do with how good the wines are. And a lot of those
not.
high-end, established, formal places work like that.
Oh no, I've been talking to her about your wines, and she's interested in
Okay,
eating
well,
it.
we'll talk to her.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
No question. Sure.
And they're gonna have like 6 restaurants
And
in there.
I'll
so-
support them too. I'll go in there and
Yeah,
support them like
absolutely.
I do. I'll go and pour
Oh,
for all
she'll
the
love
staff.
you.
Yeah.
Oh, she'll love you. Don't worry.
How much do you think she'll
Yeah, but
She will.
you better have a text sheet.
Inappropriate.
You better have a text sheet.
Sam, how would you describe the nose on Inappropriate?
Yes.
How would you describe it?
I would say
Oh, good.
gentle
Ooh.
notes of citrus.
Tropical fruit? Frangipani? Do you know what frangipani is?
I taste some kiwi.
Oh yeah.
I taste some New Zealand kiwi.
Frangipani is those fragrant flowers that they make the wreaths that they put around your neck when you get
Yeah.
off the plane in Hawaii.
Oh, really?
Ooh, I smell that now that you mentioned
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
interesting how that works.
Yeah.
Once your
No,
brain,
that works. No,
Yeah.
because I'll sit with somebody like for example, Eric Glomsky on page.
I love Eric.
He'll come out with 5 metaphors like that, and I'll go, of course, I couldn't think of that. You know.
Do you taste kiwi? I taste it.
Um,
Taste it again. And believe it or not, this sounds crazy. I taste vanilla.
well, no, that's not uncommon at all. But
Do you taste vanilla? I taste
No.
vanilla.
You got an interesting palate.
See?
It tastes a bit of kiwi because I peed in the barrels.
Uh-huh.
There you go.
I heard that you bathe in your wine.
Oh, of course. I lend it essence de Sam.
I heard that you take all your clothes off
Yeah,
and you
exactly.
rub around in the
I do
wine.
have a shower first, though.
Yeah, right.
I heard you make love in that wine.
Yeah. Yeah,
No, it
you,
gets too
you have your
squeaky.
wine tank and it says shower first before entering the wine tank, right?
Dominic's from Europe. He's Hungarian and Polish.
Polish.
Cheers.
But I mean, Europeans talk like that all the time. You know,
Oh, yeah.
French
Oh, yeah.
French
My
people.
parents. Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
You know, it's really funny. Queen Victoria really screwed things up. I mean, people will sometimes criticize me for the language I use. Do you guys ever read Shakespeare? I taught Shakespeare for 2 years at Victoria University.
You did?
Yeah.
How did we never talk about that before?
I don't know.
That's amazing.
The
What has he not done?
The language spoken in his plays. He started out writing plays for workers, you know, for peasants, and they're all just on the floor, you know. And so he's got a lot of dirty jokes, you know. Falstaff leans lards the lean earth as he walks along, and a lot of crudity. But as they got more, as he became more famous, he started writing plays for the more and more upper class and then royalty, and his plays I took a whole bunch of my son's school kids to a Shakespeare Romeo and Juliet, and you know, it's hard to understand what the hell they're saying in those plays. I felt sad for those kids, but in the middle of that play, Juliet's nurses are talking about the manliness of Romeo and the bulge in his pants and things like that. These kids just fucking stop talking. The
15-year-old, I told you the show would be salacious.
15-year-old virgin princesses in Shakespeare plays make sexual jokes all the time. So this all became something you couldn't do after Queen Victoria. It's utter bullshit, you know. That every how could you talk around children like that? Give me a break. You want to see If you think that talk is bad, try having a look at what they look at on their laptop at 10 o'clock at night.
It's funny.
It's
That's true.
Hypocritical bullshit. That's what it is, you know.
Cheers. Salacious summer sippers with Sam. Wow. Well, what is on your bucket list for your wines? Can we name a wine? Can we help you name some wines? And do you ever take any ideas?
I'm open to everything. I mean, what happens is, once again, all of the names come from real things. And we do these posters, you can see them in the wineries, where we do a picture and write up I do a little write-up about the origins of something like Wild Child wine, for example. I've got a picture of my son when he was a little tiny kid standing on a beach in New Zealand looking at a volcano called Rangitoto. And I wrote on that sheet, and you can see it in both of the wineries. I said, we call these things Wild Child White because the first time I made one, I sourced the grapes from an abandoned vineyard across the road, so it was a wild vineyard. I wanted to be able to have license to make the Wild Child white and red wines out of any blend that I chose. All our other wines are classical; they're all classical profile. And then we had just had a little boy, so that name comes from three things. And this is true with One Night Stand. It's true. I'll kind of tell you about two.
So One Night Stand, that wouldn't be bad.
Well, the main reason.
Oh, is that how your kid happened?
No. No. The funny
It's
thing.
named after his kid. No.
No, the main reason.
Dominic is laughing.
That's good.
The main reason I called it One Night Stand was because the first one I made in 2006, we just called it Rosé, and I was pouring it for 50 people, about half men and half women. And I said, we have nicknamed this wine because we made it from grapes that were subsequently pulled out. We can never make this wine again. I pulled the grapes out because the wine was crap and it wound up getting a silver medal. And I said, so we nicknamed this wine, and then I came out with the words One Night Stand. All the women in the room started laughing and all the men looked nervous. and I thought, I don't know what's going on here, but that's what we're calling it from now on. You know?
Well, I think I love when you have these fun, just cool, unique names.
Well,
they're sexy.
Well, there's
It's cool.
Sure, Diva is called Diva because, and we have a poster of that in the winery. So of this little girl doing handstands on my front lawn on my beach in New Zealand. And this girl was the daughter of a friend of mine. She came and stayed with us for 3 days at my beach house, and she spent the whole 3 days doing cartwheels on the beach. And her name was Diva. And I said to myself,
Her name was Diva.
Her name was Diva.
Oh,
and I said,
cool.
one day I'm going to name one of my wines after her. And 12 years later, I made Diva, and we called it Diva. So
Wow.
and then but you can even see the pictures that go with these things. So it's quite fun.
That's amazing.
So they're not just clever, you know. I mean, inappropriate's a little bit of a joke because we used to call it.
Oh no,
symphony.
that's so easy.
Well, they're clever, but they all have a deeper meaning.
But
to them,
but there's another reason. There's a double entendre because I think it says it on the back label. It's also inappropriate because it's a blend of two powerful aromatic whites that I've made in a process that diminishes all those qualities, and then I put them together to see what it would work like.
Could somebody read the back of it?
Well,
Yeah.
you forgot to do the swirl, sniff,
Swirl,
and
sniff,
sip. You need to follow Sam's directions. Come
Okay,
on now.
swirl.
What could be more inappropriate than fermenting the aromatic grape symphony, a cross of Grenache Gris and Muscat of Alexandria, developed by UC Davis with our wild fermented Malvasia Bianca, an Italian aromatic, all wild yeast fermented. I said that's inappropriate. You know, nobody else has ever done that, as far as I know.
Naughty, naughty.
That's
I
incredible.
don't think
Ooh, that's a wine. You have to use that. Naughty, naughty.
That's fun.
Well, it would have to come from a real place, though.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
you know.
But it is. You're here on the show, and Jen just said
Well,
it.
we'll see. I mean, I have 14 different wines.
Okay, well, I want to open a vineyard called King It, and I'm going to name my wine Naughty.
Sure.
You can't use it.
Seriously, she wants to buy property
I do.
down in Wilcox.
I do.
Vineyard property.
I
What do you
do.
think?
I want to look. I do.
Well,
Well,
there's-
what's available?
Oh, honey, that's plenty down there. I mean, I don't have a list for you right now, but you can next door to me. There's land for sale. You know, so.
Oh, how many acres are available?
I don't
next
know,
to you?
honey. You have to find it. I'm too busy making fucking wine. I get.
He's worried about the competition, I'm sure.
Oh yeah, that'll be the day. It's really funny. You know those guys that send out those generic offerings for your property. So
Yeah.
these people keep asking me if I want to sell my property in Wilcox.
Oh,
I go,
really?
oh, okay, it's $3 million.
Okay, could I buy the whole Pillsbury thing?
Sure.
Okay, let's stop.
We could start a conversation maybe at $7 million. Okay.
Okay, all right.
And then you have to figure out how to run it because I'm not going to do it after myself.
I could pull a Sam Fox. He sold his company, and now he's still the CEO.
Aren't we here to talk about the beauty of his wines, not like buying his vineyard?
Let me tell you something. Now listen. Here, I'm going to tell you another story.
Did you hit her head?
Yeah, I did. A lot of people. No.
No, I was talking to her, not you.
A lot of people come into our tasting rooms and they say, I don't like whites.
Oh,
I
yeah.
love your white.
And
I
I
hear that
say to
all the
them,
time.
I understand because most of the whites that you buy for between $12 and $16 a bottle are terrible. They're mass produced in huge tanks. They have residual sugar to mask flaws. They're done with sacks of yeast.
Sulfur dioxide.
And probably a lot of pesticides too.
Oh, for sure.
Sure, exactly. That shit is going to get in all your wine. If you use that stuff, it's going to get in there.
Yeah.
There's just been another really interesting article about all these French guys tasted all these wines blind that were organically grown and the organically grown wines tasted better because they've got more complexity. They've got more animals in them.
Animals?
All sorts of live things.
Well, there's more intricacies.
The soil is more
Live microbes.
The soil is more complex, and the other thing about being dependent on Monsanto is the more of that shit you use, the more you have to use because the plants become dependent on it. And if you grow healthy enough, I've grown my own vegetables for 55 years. If you grow stuff healthily, you don't need to spray them with anything. One of the things that insects can't stand is natural sweetness. And really, really healthy vines, and we measure it every year. They have quite a lot of sugar in the leaves, and the insects can't eat it. They can't process it. It kills them. So they're self-protecting, and that's how we do it. We a few things.
That's important. This is
Very quickly.
important.
I also felt there's
That's
far
what
too
makes
much
it organic.
far too much generic food and wine in the world. So we only make wine from the fruit that we grow organically
Sam
on my
Pillsbury.
one property in Wilcox, on my 100-acre vineyard. We only make wine from that fruit. We ferment all of our wines with the wild yeast that comes in on the fruit from that property. So I wanted to make a wine that was made by a person and came from a place. It wasn't made by a committee and came in on a friggin' truck and got backed into a machine, And
And a lot of people do that.
Most people do it.
It's
And
a commercial
yeah.
generic
Yeah,
wines.
you and the trouble is you basically can't risk making wine the way I do is not economic. It's very expensive. The only way you can make wine
It's
is
a passion project.
well,
really.
no,
You
but
love it.
I mean, if we're already selling wines for $120 a bottle. So sooner or later we're going to become profitable, and it's going
And
to be
slowly
nice.
it's going to be 300.
Yeah, and for
I need to be your marketing. I think it should be 300. A lot of it should be 300.
but what happens is, so in order to have a commercial operation, you have to make wines in bulk. If you make them in bulk, you can't afford to wild yeast them because you don't know what's going to happen. And if that goes off, 10,000 gallon tanks is a lot of friggin' wine, you know. So I understand why people do that, but we just do everything in barrels. So it's all tiny amounts, and we can play around with it. And we put the white. There's almost no chemicals in our wines. There's no sugar. There's no new oak. There's wild yeast fermented. It's incredibly natural. And
You are what you eat.
and
You are what you drink.
You know, really, it makes a difference. I mean, that's
You
why
are.
you buy your vegetables at a farmer's
When you see
market
all those,
instead
like,
of
you know,
yeah. So
crazy people, it's because they're
It's
drinking bad
careful
wine.
winemaking that makes the difference.
It's-
It's clean, careful winemaking that makes the difference.
And most other people have laughed at me for years for doing wild yeast ferments, and I think they're threatened by it. They think you're being kind of a wanker or something, you know, that like. But one of the legitimate reasons that people have is that you can get stop fermentation, so it's very complex. It's very hard to restart. You might spoil the wines. So I'll just tell you a funny story. We like to make we make a dessert wine sometimes, but it's a late harvest. So a dessert wine has alcohol and sugar added to it.
And what's that called? Your wine is-
Chaptalizing and fortifying. What we do is we make our sweeter wine with what we call a late harvest, which is you pick it so ripe that the yeast dies before it's fermented all the sugar, so it's a little bit sweet. But it's fructose. It's not sucrose. It's different. So we did a late harvest last year, and it came. We picked it at 29 to 30 bricks, which is outrageously sweet. And so my winemaker said, "What should we?" I said, just let it ferment naturally, and it'll stop at 3 or 4% residual sugar, and it'll be sweet. It fermented this friggin' wine bone dry. That
Really?
means that my wild yeasts on my property are extremely potent. We have never had a spoilt wine. We have never had a stop fermentation.
Wait
Wow.
a minute.
Interesting.
It fermented
29
all the way
bricks,
dry
all the way
on a
bone
20.
dry.
Oh my
Wow.
Wow.
People can hardly believe it, you know, like people who do wine, because all around me are people going, oh, you know, what if it stops fermenting, blah blah blah. And there's French ways of accelerating fermentation naturally, which we used to do originally, and then we got lazy one year, didn't do it, and everything's still fermented dry anyway. So whatever, that's okay.
So I know you take pride in your cooking, and we didn't go over which
he's
dishes
an
would be your favorite
exceptional.
with the inappropriate. We talked about the symphony food pairings a little bit, but would you
Well,
go?
I think you brought up a really nice note, because it's a whole range of things. For example, if you had some delicate seafood but you spiced it up a little bit, then you know that would be fine. I think you'll notice something else about my wines, that I don't use screw caps, which I love.
I love.
And
I
you'll
don't
notice
like, I don't like screw caps.
You'll notice that. Well, they're great. You'll
You
notice,
like them?
darling, they work great. The trouble is they're made of plastic and aluminum.
But you only
and
you like that word.
what word?
What's it called?
I don't know.
What's the cap called?
Aluminum.
Screw cap.
You
Aluminum.
like that word?
Do I? It's aluminium to do the English. Aluminum and plastic are polluting.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
I use
We're pro cork around here.
no.
I like the cork.
But screw caps work great, and they're so easy.
But you like the screw.
Yes, darling, I do, but I don't want to make something that's polluting, so I don't.
Oh,
So-
okay,
and another
okay,
thing,
okay.
let me bring another thing up too, because a lot of this is ideological. See those bottles? They're very light. I buy the lightest glass
Oh.
bottles that you can, and that's also an eco decision, because
Really?
it costs more money to make a heavy glass bottle, and it costs a shitload more money to ship a truck full of cases that weigh 50 pounds each.
Because we're here
instead of
saving the
40 pounds.
planet.
Yeah.
One show at a time.
So-
With Sam Pillsbury Summer Sippers.
And it's got nothing to do with quality at all. It's just about ego. The big heavy bottles look like it's expensive. That's why people
Yep.
use them.
Is that why?
Oh, yeah.
That's why people use them. I mean, okay, I'll give in a little here. The more mass to the bottle, the more constant temperature it's going to stay at. But
That's
who's dragging their wines in and out of hot cars all the time?
Yeah.
You know, come on. I mean,
No
this
one.
just doesn't happen.
No one does it. No.
Well, not only is Sam doing a lot of stuff on his end that is good for the environment, like using
He's
real
so
corks
sustainable.
and having a very organic, efficient operation, but also if you source your wine locally, like from Arizona, if you're living in Arizona, and one of our listeners, it's way more sustainable to get wine from here. It's not
Exactly.
traveling hundreds or thousands of
Sure.
miles to get here.
Yeah.
It's just a short
Train, ship,
Yeah.
truck, and then also, I mean, even loading cases into my car. The difference between a case of one of those heavy bottles and these is massive. It's
Oh, yeah.
literally like 10 pounds. I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah, so you're way more efficient than most operations. So people buying Pillsbury wine, they can not only know they're getting amazing tasting wine, but it's also a better choice for the environment than if they bought something from California or France or
So
somewhere.
if you're drinking Sam's wines, and even if you don't live in Arizona, they're so sustainable. He's not using all these pesticides and toxins, and he's sourcing everything local, and he's just cool. So he's
It's
He
quite,
is cool.
It's quite interesting. People think growing organically is more complicated and more expensive. It's a little more complicated. You have to think a bit more.
Mhm.
But there is all the sprays that I use are organic. They're
I know they are.
they're fine. They work great. They're not expensive. There are expensive ones. So you can do. And we just fertilized 30 acres with chicken poop basically as
Yeah.
well. So the sprays and the fertilizer. The only problem is weed. And I
Uh-oh.
don't
You
mean
mean
that
weed?
kind of weed.
Cannabis?
No, weeds.
Weeds.
There
Do you
are.
smoke cannabis?
Tony, I'm talking about weeds.
Weeds.
We're farming. I'm gardening.
Okay.
Change the subject. And what there's just no good organic weed sprays. There just isn't. They don't work. They're all made with citrus compounds and they're just feasible.
So what do you recommend for that?
Well, we use a machine instead of spraying,
That's so smart.
which
you
is
do?
which is expensive and
Yeah.
time consuming. I mean, the weeding machine alone costs $11,000,
Wow.
and it goes onto the side of a $35,000 tractor, and someone has to drive it, and it does use diesel, but we don't use Roundup, So it's
That's huge because
So that's
that
huge.
study just came out like last year saying how widespread the Roundup is in our food and drinks.
Oh, yeah.
It's in everything. If
Well,
you're
that's
not
why
buying-
if you're going to
especially
go
if
to
you're not-
Costco and buy a bottle of wine that's $15, and you think, okay, I don't want to spend $30 or $35. Well, you know what? You are what you eat. And if you're drinking poison and you're drinking Roundup and you're drinking pesticides, you know what? You're going to shorten your life in half. You're not going to live to be 105 like my grandma did.
very simple principle to live by is that everything that you do in your life either makes the world a better place or a worse place.
Yes.
And you can say it doesn't matter. I'm walking down a pathway in Sedona behind 4 girls, and one of them's holding a can of Coke in one hand, and they went around the corner, they disappeared, and I thought, I'm just gonna keep following these girls. They went around the next corner, and a can of Coke was sitting on top of a rock. How can you do that? How can you do that? So it's not that hard to not do that shit with the wine that you make. It's just not, You just have to think a little bit more. And the whole thing about growing organically, it's better for the wine, it's better for the soil, it's better for the plant. And like I said, these French did this huge test, and the wines tasted better than organically.
And so spend more money for your health. I mean, do you want to be...
Another thing, you'll notice that I don't use foils on my wines.
Yeah,
You
no
know what a foil
foils.
is, right?
I don't
It goes
like
over
the
the cork,
foils.
but it's kind of
Oh.
inefficient, right?
Let me tell you something. They're
But that's
completely
good.
useless.
Yeah.
They're completely useless.
Really?
They cost money. The machine to put them on costs money. You have to, when you're bottling, you have to pay someone to operate the machine, and then some poor bastard has to take them off. Now you walk into Costco. Just try it sometime and see if you can find. There's thousands of bottles in there. See if you can find a single bottle that doesn't have a foil on it. And I look at that and I go, I don't use them. I don't need them. Okay. No one's ever even
That's so
mentioned it.
interesting.
It's
I haven't
another
paid
way you're being
attention.
efficient.
And I'll tell you something. When I walk in there and I look at that and I go, why are 99% of the people doing something that's costly and completely useless? I mean, if they're doing that with their tops of their bottles, aren't they doing the same thing with their wine? You better believe it. They're doing the same shit everybody else does because everyone else is doing it with no reason at all.
So they're being like a
Well,
sheep.
okay,
They're following
so-
this.
But look at and you should see the volume. It's phenomenal.
I know
Like
that.
almost everybody does that, and there's a historical
Interesting.
reason for it. And when the
Thank you.
when the French chateaus would keep all of their wines in limestone caves, the limestone caves were cool. They're fantastic. But they're also very moist, so a little bit of mold would grow in the cork, and sometimes a rat would come and nibble it. So they put the foils on to stop that from happening. We don't leave our friggin' wine in limestone caves. So just
So
think
there was a
about why
purpose
you're
long
doing
ago.
things,
Long ago.
Yeah, there was a reason for it long ago. It's the same with a lot of.
So it's just
a lot
become
of things.
tradition. There's no practical reason for it anymore.
But Is there any practical reason for somebody that lives in a colder climate to use it?
No, that's not to do with cold.
Okay.
It's got to do with humidity.
Okay, humidity. Okay, and rats.
And rats.
And if rats eat it. There's another interesting one. I think I mentioned this in one of the previous shows. Is also people think you have to lie bottles on their side to keep the cork hydrated. Not true. The history of that is that in the French chateaus, the limestone caves were cut out of a wall to the depth of the length of a bottle and maybe 12 feet long, and you can store the bottles lying on their side. You can't store them on top of each other, okay? So it's a more efficient way of storing wine. The cork manufacturers that I use that are Portuguese, that grow their own trees, that make their own corks, say there's enough moisture in that gap between the cork and the where the top of the wine is to keep the cork hydrated. Now, if you keep your wine with an AC running in the room that it's in all the time, after a few years, it'll start to dry the cork out. That's all, you know.
So right now, Pillsbury Wines is at 100 acres. Do you see it growing? Like, how much bigger do you think you're going to get? Because
I don't want to get any bigger. I'm 76 years old. I'm up to here with how hard I work.
I've seen it. I worked with you.
Well, it seems like the demand for your wines is growing steadily.
No, it's pretty constant.
This guy is an Energizer bunny. He does not stop. He goes. But
there's 130 wineries in the state of Arizona now. And when I started, there was like 5.
But you're never gonna stop.
No, probably not. I mean, if somebody came in and gave me $5 million for 49% of my company, there you go, Kendra.
Yes.
I would plant more vines, but right now, it takes. If you plant your own vines, it takes 10 years to break even for the cost of it.
Yeah.
It takes 3 years before you can even pick grapes off of them. I'm 76. I'm gonna be like 90 before I pay my fucking vineyard.
Yeah, you'll be fine. My grandma was oh, stop it. You stop it.
Well, I'm gonna have a little bit of a break at some point in my life.
You could sell the New Zealand house mansion. You could sell the
I'm gonna go live in
Malibu
my New
mansion.
Zealand house when I do.
Right.
You could sell a lot of your mansions.
I'll sell my Malibu mansion.
Yeah, you could sell that one. There you go.
I built it myself too.
That's so cool.
So on the bucket list for the wine, do we want to do any new incredible wines that have cool names? Like
I don't have new. I already have enough wines. I mean, I make 14 different wines. That's insane.
Yeah.
That's so many.
That's
so many.
But
Wow.
the reason we do it is no one's ever grown. When I started, no one had ever grown grapes
Wow.
or made wine in that place, or one person had. And I was trying to find out what worked, and it's really weird because it doesn't fit in to any other kinds of profiles. You know, I'm sorry.
Is it more clear when he's closer?
I mean, it is, but we can hear him. We can hear him
Yeah,
still.
It's just more clear.
It's just that it's an odd terroir, and it doesn't. The rules are different, and I can. That doesn't maybe time for another show, but I can tell you why these. I can tell you why these are so good, and there's reasons for it. And
it's because it's you. You're
no.
perfectionist.
It's because I picked the right spot, and the spot works, and I'll tell you why it works at some point. But it's gonna be another 15 minutes. So.
Wow!
It's
Oh,
magic.
that's the next
It's
show.
pure magic. It's
Next
pure
show.
magic. People laugh in my face for growing wine grapes in Arizona. It's one of the best places in the world to grow wine grapes, and I can tell you why.
Well,
also
we can
cheap.
taste it. Can you pass me the symphony? It's a symphony of.
That's inappropriate, isn't it?
Is it?
To pass the symphony
Is
is
inappropriate.
inappropriate.
It's so inappropriate, but it's a symphony, and it's a symphony of delicious.
A symphony of
Symphony of wine.
flavors.
I don't.
And we have to pass them to Dominic. Dominic wants them.
Okay.
So we only have a minute and a half. So what do you want to be remembered for with your wines, your movies, and your life?
I don't care. I'll be dead. I could give a shit.
You're not going to be dead. You're not going to be
He's never going
Yeah,
to
he's not going to be aware. Yeah.
You're not
Well,
gonna
I
be
mean,
dead.
I think that I never made a movie to get rich. I made movies. I tried to make movies to tell a story and
To make
do
a difference.
something to do a difference. I mean that. I made a lot of documentaries. I changed a lot of things with some of my documentaries in New Zealand. I changed the way they delivered babies in hospitals. I made a lot of changes, and I care about that. And for the wine, I started out making these wines different from anyone else in Arizona, and a few people are doing some of the things that I do now. But I just wanted to honor the uniqueness of the spot that I found,
There you go.
and what that
Wow.
can do to create beauty and give you greater pleasure. And what
It's
you think.
such beauty.
That is true winemaking.
It is true
To
winemaking.
honor
I
the
love.
place the wine comes from. That's what it's all about. And this is nothing new. This is ancient.
It's called terroir.
Yeah.
Terroir. Arizona Terroir.
Yep.
So what should we title the show? Arizona Terroir with Sam Pillsbury?
Sam sips summers.
Yeah. So we should sip this. We have 4 seconds, 3 seconds. So sip this in the summer with your barbecue or your salmon or your snapper.
And don't forget to swirl, sniff, and then sip.
And that's your wine and then your date.
Sniff your date.
Sam Pillsbury.
Now, we don't advise you to sniff your date. That's fucking weird. Don't do that.